information that that you cannot receive in other places, meaning information from friends and colleagues at the PTACs, which are the Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, funded by the Department of Defense, the Small Business Administration, and the Small Business and the OSBU offices at the federal government. And so our purpose is really to give you a deep dive into several of the topic areas, and to have speakers and panelists who actually do this work and make their living on it every day to come to be able to speak to you. And so our format's going to be, we're going to have our guest speaker present, and Don and I will be asking him questions back and forth. And then after that, for about 30 minutes, there'll be a Q&A session where you can feel free to ask questions. And so as you can see here, this is the first program, April 11th, upgrade your playbook, strategy, and planning. And as it relates to scaling your business, we're going to be focused on build infrastructure for growth, finances, and accounting. The next session on May 9th will be seen and heard, visibility and marketing. May 23rd will be show me the money, cash flow and capital access. June 6th will be buyer or seller, growing organically and through acquisitions. And the last event, which will be in person, will be make new best friends, relationships, and government contracting success. And Don, you can introduce session 1 here.
Sure, absolutely. Hello, everyone. You're going to be getting a lot of good information from these sessions. What we're trying to do is make sure that we give you expertise, real life experience, and actionable items that you can take away right now and put into place. And we're very excited that you are signing up for the 6th series, because I think you'll find these to be extremely, extremely beneficial to your government contracting success, both short-term and long-term. We're going to start with the introduction of our guest today. And John, would you take care of that?
Yes. Everyone, we are excited to have Mr. Joseph Ruffini join us. Joe's got a very interesting background and is a great fit for us today. Not to tell his age at all, but he spent about the last 30 plus years in federal government contracting and leadership roles in capture, business development, and proposal writing. And also, we want to thank Joe for his service to our country. He's a retired lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army. In particular, his accomplishments include strategic communications and information operations, subject matter expert and advisor to the Director for Strategic Communications and Information at the National Security Council, the White House, and the U.S. Space Command. And Joe is also an author of 3 different books, I believe 2 different books. His 3rd one is coming out. He's completing his 3rd book titled Vigilance, Not Paranoia, What Everyone Should Know About Terror Organizations and Their Followers. And so after we have a introduction and a welcome from our executive director, Ken White, we'll get started with Joe's presentation. Ken?
All right, thank you, sir. Let's see. Can you see my screen? Nope, not yet. Now you can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Want to welcome everyone to the Maryland Beck Chamber of Commerce, our federal government contracting series. This series will go from April through June. And want to thank Dawn and John for putting this together, and Melissa for helping out, and Joe for being our first presenter.
The banker that we got to get 5 minutes.
Just quick commercial on the chamber. We are the Maryland Beck Chamber of Commerce, and we were established in 2017. We are headquartered in Rockville, Maryland, with a satellite office located in Hagerstown, Maryland, at the Hagerstown Community College. Our mission is to educate, advocate, and connect Black business owners within the state of Maryland. Our membership ranges as far north as Hartford County, as far west as Hagerstown, and as far south as St. Mary's County. So we are very active in supporting our membership. I want to thank our sponsors for this series. You will notice that we've been putting on a lot of programming lately, and it's all been free. And that has been due to 2 grants that we have, one from Prince George's County Level Up Program and to Montgomery County, a major grant that we've received from them. So we want to make sure we always thank them for allowing us to bring this information and these types of resources to our membership. As I mentioned, we are headquartered in Rockville, Maryland at the Nonprofit Village. And you can go online and follow the link to join. It's a very easy process. We're looking for more members. We want to expand, and we're having a great time.
Mhm.
And we want to invite you to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We have a lot of activity, as I've re-emphasized. So please follow us. Right now, we have from the month of April through June, we just finished our Doing Business with Montgomery County series in March. From April to June, we have our Doing Business with federal government contracting 6-part series. We're in the middle of our Doing Business with Prince George's County. We have our second session this month.
Yep.
We have Doing Business with the State series. That's a 3-part series. Actually, it's a 4-part series going into the summer for a veterans session. We have a program series for in partnership with the International Franchise Association. We have a franchising series that's going on right now. So a lot of other stuff going on, but please follow us and stay tuned to what we're doing. Please mark on your calendar. We have a really great event coming up in June. We have a Juneteenth celebration on June 15th at the Brookside Gardens. It's going to be a beer and wine tasting by local Black-owned wineries and breweries. So we're gonna have a little wine tasting and beer tasting and food pairing and a little jazz and a presentation from the Banneker Douglas Museum, a presentation from the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture. We'll have some spoken word and a little more entertainment. So put that on your calendar. Stay tuned. We should have that information out shortly. That said, thank you and welcome to this event. I know you're going to enjoy it. And guys, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, well, thank you, Ken. You got me thirsty already for the beer and wine, but I guess I'll have to wait to June 15th. But
We'll do a little sampler.
yeah, there you go.
Sounds
That
good.
sounds good. That's
John, thank you very much for the introduction, sir.
Yep.
Very kind of you. It's I'm a proud member of the Maryland Black Chamber of Commerce, and it's a privilege to share some thoughts with you all today. I've been doing this quite a while, and I made a lot of mistakes in learning what I think I know. So I'm going to give it to you straight. It's one person's perspective. I'm not a know-it-all. I don't have all the answers. And if you out there during this session happen to disagree with something I say, let's make me and everybody else smarter. Go get in there and counter. And as my contribution to the Maryland Black Chamber of Commerce, I want to make an offer to all you guys today. If you have a question about past performance, you want to bounce something off me as a sanity check, email me or call my cell number anytime, and I'm very happy to give you my 2 cents for what it's worth. So call me if you need any advice or you just need another opinion. I'd be very happy to help anybody out. There's a large learning curve when it comes to doing government contracts. You never stop learning, and I will tell you up front that even the big companies, I mean companies that deal in billions of dollars worth of government work a year, make really stupid mistakes they shouldn't make when it comes to reply to solicitations, and especially with past performance. Most of the time it's attention to detail and a failure to be compliant.
Yep.
For instance, they'll say that the contracts you put up in past performance, they have to have been within the last 36 months. And I'll have a partner that sends me a contract and says, this is great for past performance, Joe. We want you to use it. And it's 5 years old. And I go back to these people who are professional business developers who've been doing this for 20 or 30 years. And I say, what part of 36 months is so hard to understand for a grown man? 5 years is 60 months. Yeah. Anyhow, wait, we'll get into it here. And I get excited about this because I really love this. It's so challenging and it's so hard to do right. And it's so easy to screw it up over one little thing. And please remember that when it comes to compliance, your company, your team, as you probably all know, can be thrown out of the competition just for one thing that they find non-compliant.
And they
Just
look
one.
for it.
It could be a little thing. They may decide to overlook it. It may be a little thing. Maybe they don't like your company. Maybe they don't like somebody in your company, and they use that as an excuse to throw it out. So what questions do you have there, John and Don? I'm anxious to get into this.
Let's do two things.
Okay, so just as we get started, we'll let everyone know if you have any questions, please put them into the chat box. As Joe is talking, Don and I will recognize those questions. And then again, we have a series of questions to go back and forth with Joe here for a few minutes, and there will be a Q&A afterwards. And then during the Q&A period, please use the reactions tab at the bottom of Zoom just to be able to raise your hand, and we'll do our best to recognize them in the order that we see them. So go that way. Okay, Joe, the first question we have is, what is past performance and why is it important in government contract?
Good question. Past performance is important for two reasons. Number one, the federal acquisition regulation says that every solicitation should ask for the company or the company team's past performance. Past performance shows the government what a contractor's actions and the evaluation of those actions have been in the past for similar contracts. The only way that the government can judge how capable your team is you say, this is what we've done on this contract. Here's our CPARs, which we'll talk about later, our government report card that, shows that we did it well. And the thing about past performance in government solicitations, every solicitation is going to have how they evaluate every officer proposal. And normally they'll evaluate the technical proposal, the management proposal, the past performance, and the cost. Sometimes just the technical past performance and cost. And when you read the evaluation, it will say things like technical counts more than cost. Past performance counts more than cost. So right away, you know that the government's not as concerned about the rates that you're going to bid as they are about how good are you answering the technical questions and how much value can they get out of your past performance. For the government not to ask for past performance would be, basically shooting in the dark on the award. I mean, I've never seen a solicitation without one. Melissa, can you please put up the call-up number 2?
And Joe, a quick follow-up on that. When I was the OSBU director of the Energy Department, I would get companies talking about, hey, I haven't worked in the federal government, but I've have a great track record and experience either in the commercial sector or state and local government. Can you speak to how that can and how maybe it might not apply as past performance from a
that's a great point. Yeah. Normally in the guidance for the past performance, and you see it here, an example, and I won't read it to you. You can have a look at it. Sometimes the government will say your past performance contracts have to be federal government or Department of Defense, no private sector, no commercial. Other times they will say it can be federal, state, or private sector. Sometimes, believe it or not, as many times as the government has done this, it doesn't specify. If it doesn't specify, all solicitations, the contracting officer gives you an opportunity to come back with your questions. And if it's not specified, and that's a good point, John, let's say it's a federal solicitation and you've got a wealth of experience in the commercial side of the house, then by all means, you want to put that contract forward, but only if they allow it. So that's one of the questions you go back to the government with. Can I use commercial? Can I use private sector? And let their answer be the guide to whether you select those contracts or not. Did that answer that, John?
Yeah, thank you. And Don, you can move to question number 2. Yep.
Well, before we get to question number 2, Joe, tell me specifically what past performance is and what is considered to be acceptable to the government on the commercial and the GovCon side.
It really depends on the solicitation, how they word it. Let me give you an example. There's some things the government needs that really, it doesn't matter whether you did it commercially or government. Let's say information technology infrastructure, or let's do one better, help desk, okay? Tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 help desk support. A help desk is a help desk. And whether you're serving a private sector client, commercial or federal government, The same things go into the help desk, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. There's industry standards for the amount of technical knowledge people working tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 need, the procedures, the policies. So for instance, if a large part of this government solicitation is we need tier 1 and tier 2 help desks set up in 7 locations within the continental United States, and you've got a commercial one where you've set up 15 in North America, South America, and Europe, and the government says, yeah, you can use the commercial. Well, that's value added. Not only have you done it in the States, you've done it internationally. So you've negotiated all the foreign laws, all the foreign requirements, and you've demonstrated that you can set this up not only in the States, but where it's really difficult to do. So, I mean, it all depends on what the solicitation is and how they tell you what the requirements are and what they are. Sometimes they're very specific and laid out, and there's really no question as to what the government's looking for. Other times, it can be quite vague, and you got to go back and ask questions. Did that answer it, Don?
Yeah. Now, I understand that there has to be 2 years of past performance for a company to qualify. Is that accurate?
It depends on the solicitation. Most of the past performance requirements I have, you can use active or past contracts that have been active or terminated within the last 5 years.
Okay.
It's normally either 5 years or 36 months. And you can use active contracts or ones that have terminated during that time. But the key is you got to have good report cards. And we're going to talk about the
Let's talk about that.
contractor performance assessment reports. Yeah.
Okay. And so, Joe, this is the second question. Does the past performance have to be applicable to the contract requirements, or can it just be in general to show that you have done government and commercial work successfully?
It has to be specific to what the solicitation says. And here's an example up on the screen. All right. Your past performance contract has to be relevant as a prime or a subcontract, similar in nature, size, complexity to the services being procured under the solicitation. So let me give you an example. Let's say they want you to set up a tier 1 and tier 2 help desk that's going to service 15,000 employees. Okay.
Mhm.
You can't go back with a contract where you set up a help desk for 250 employees, because that's not within the nature, size, and complexity of what this solicitation is.
Gotcha.
And I've dealt with this as being a past performance lead on a team before. Many times I'll deal with this. I'll get a teammate that'll send in and say, hey, look, we did a great job on this tier 1 and tier 2 help desk build out. And I'll go into the details. It was for 150 people. The government's asking you to do this for 15,000 people. You see where I'm going with this?
I understand. Past
for
performance has to
instance,
be relevant.
Yeah, if the new contract calls for help desk to be set up in 3 North American locations, 1 in the Federal Republic of Germany, and 2 in the United Kingdom, and you don't have past performance with international highly rated experience, then you're not a player. Your choice is don't answer that solicitation, or find a teammate who has done that and who has good report cards doing that. And I think all too often when a prime brings on their subs, they don't look closely enough at, is their past performance going to be applicable? And it goes, Don and I, you were talking, and I were talking a while back about the difference between past performance and past experience,
Yes.
right?
Let's talk about it, because that was one of the
Yes,
questions.
so that's a great question.
Yeah. There's a big difference between, you can't have past performance without having past experience, but you can have past experience without having past performance. Let me show you what I mean. Pardon me. Let's say that the National Aeronautics and Space Administration is putting out a solicitation for some kind of satellite support. It's a ground station, it's a launch, it's TT&C maintaining the satellite in orbit. And let's say that Don's been with my company for a year. I brought him over when he retired from NASA. He used to be the flight dynamics officer at Johnson Space Flight Center. Don knows everything there is to know about satellite systems. He has the professional experience. He's got the past experience. But the government, usually, generally, normally, most of the time, is going to say, yeah, that's nice. Yeah, we know who Don is. He's a great guy. But what has your company done? with satellites and satellite systems. Now, there is one exception. Sometimes when solicitations come out, they want the prime contractor responding to sign people on to certain job positions
Yeah.
with a commitment that if they win the contract, this is who are going to be the program manager. Now, if I'm responding to this NASA solicitation and it says, we want to see the resume and the paperwork where you commit a subject matter expert to be the PM if you win this. Now that's where Don comes in handy as a retired NASA guy that everybody knows and respect. I go to Don and I say, look, if we win, Don, will you be the program manager for this contract? Don says yes. He signs on the dotted line. We beef up his resume in the format the government wants. Now we're submitting his past experience, but it also applies to his ability to lead the contract in the future. So there's several ways you can play this.
So then so if I understand you saying correctly, Joe, excuse me, that if you have the key personnel, if you have the resume and the background of the key personnel the government identifies for that contract, even if your company doesn't have the past performance, that may be, I'll say a way around, that's a way perhaps that you can qualify based upon what that solicitation says.
It doesn't help you qualify for past performance experience. What it helps you do is put forth a candidate to be their program manager.
Gotcha.
That you're saying you're not going to find a better one. Don just retired. There was no flight dynamics officer better than him. His reputation throughout NASA is sterling. And we're telling you, government, you'd be hard pressed to find a better PM. We got him. We got him signed. He's all yours if we win. That's the leverage.
But Joe, your company still has to have past performance, even though I've got past experience.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the critical thing.
Absolutely. You're going to have to either have as a prime or bring on a sub that not only has done that work for NASA, but has done it very, very well and is very, very experienced and very well known. Now, we know the big companies that are world renowned for doing neat stuff. You want a stealth fighter built, it's going to be Boeing or Lockheed, right? Satellite systems, Raytheon, everything in the world. Somebody once made a joke, there's only two companies in the United States, Lockheed Martin and everybody else. You know,
so true.
but you're absolutely right. Unless you're one of these big companies that has literally done everything there is to do, and there's no problem. They've got databases. They will always be able to comply with past performance because they've always done well in all these areas. It's very, very difficult, especially when you're a small company, you know, just coming up. But whether you're an 8A, whether a prime brings you on as an 8A, whether you prime as an 8A, it doesn't matter. The experience counts in something like resumes, but you got to have the good report cards and you got to have the no kidding experience that matches what they're looking for in a solicitation, right?
And folks, that's a vital takeaway because those two, past experience and past performance, are mixed up in so many minds. And to get a really good action item and know the difference is extremely important. So if you have any questions about that, let's talk about it during the Q&A. This is an extremely important aspect. Thank you, Joe.
My pleasure.
Yeah, Joe, we'll jump right to the next question, which we've kind of teased up a little bit here. What is the contractor performance assessment reports, and how does the government use those? And how does the government utilize that data?
Outstanding, Melissa. Can we put up call out 5, please? The contractor performance assessment report is a yearly report that is mandated by the Federal Acquisition Regulation and also the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation. If your contract is worth $250,000 or more, and there are some exceptions, architecture and engineering, but normally, generally, if your contract is valued at $250,000 or more, you're required to have a contractor performance assessment report annually. This report is
Joe is lovingly called a CPARS, right?
CPARS, right?
Okay.
The report is usually written by the contracting officer's representative, who your man or woman leading your effort on site will interact with every day. The contracting officer's representative is charged by the contracting officer to make sure your company does what it's supposed to do on the contract, that it does what's in scope, and that it does what it does well. So your PM or project lead will have daily interface with the contracting officer's representative or what we call the core. Now, if you look at this slide that Melissa put up, normally these are the evaluation area, the quality of your work, how you keep the schedule, do you maintain costs, are you within cost or over budget? Is your management good? And if there's any regulatory compliance involved in this, how well do you do this? The ratings are unsatisfactory, marginal, satisfactory, good, or exceptional. So when you're looking at a contract as a possible candidate to submit for past performance, and this is actually one that I use, this is what you want to look for. You want to look for, out of the 5 categories, at least 2 or 3 exceptionals, all satisfactory and above. If you have a marginal or an unsat, no, you just don't want to use that. So when I'm pulling together past performance for a company and I have my initial meeting with all the companies that are on the team, the first thing I will say is, all right, the only thing that really matters when you put forward a contract for my consideration for past performance, you better give me the CPARs along with that contract that you send me. And here's what I want to see in the CPARs: at least 3 exceptionals, no marginals, no unsats. You lay it out from the beginning, what you expect from your teammates, and then you hold them to it. And we have to understand that the men and women that do business development day in, day out, they might be working on 2 or 3 responses to 2 or 3 solicitations at a time. They're working 10, 12 hours days. It's very, very stressful, and they will occasionally make an honest mistake. Hell, I don't have a problem with honest mistakes. I have a problem with consistent non-compliance. You know, give me A, B, and C, and they come back and say, here it is, and I open it up, it's D, E, and F. No. You know, to do past performance right really calls for what I call, you know, tough love. You have to be polite. They're teammates. You have to be respectful of people, but there's a timeline involved. All right, I'm back.
You want to
There's a
see if we were paying
timeline.
attention, right?
No, there's a timeline involved and there's money involved. All through 2020 and 2021, about 95% of my company's business is we did the lead past performance for companies. And I will tell you, if everything is rolling along smooth, to actually bring a past performance package optimally together, normally it was 40 hours from start to when we had the finished project, and the contract manager said, yep, okay, we like it. So that's 40 hours if you're doing everything right. When teammates don't cooperate, that's going to add 10, 15, 20 hours, which has a very negative effect because that comes out of your bid and proposal budget. And if you're spending $15 or $20 more for whoever's bringing together your past performance because your teammates aren't complying, I know what I would do. I would call up the teammate and say, look, you want to stay on this team? You're going to pay Joe's bill for the extra 15 hours it took to bring this together because you guys didn't have your stuff together at the first.
Yeah.
I'd have no problem doing that.
Joe, let me ask you 2 questions. On the
Yeah.
slide, it had pass rating, and then it had another column that said rating. What are the difference between those 2 columns?
Yeah, if you want to bring that one back up again.
It says pass rating, and then has the one next to it says
Past
rating.
rating, yeah, past rating was the year before.
Okay.
Rating is your most current one.
And so you put that together for your clients, or this is what the government does?
No, this is the government's rating. Now on the CPAR, it will give you this rating, and then it will a good contracting officer rep. There's paragraphs. Why was the quality exceptional? Why was the scheduling? So why were they exceptional cost control and management?
Okay.
The reason why I liked using this CPAR is it shows the government, not only were we exceptional 2 years ago, but we maintain that consistent exceptional performance through the second contract year also.
Got it.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's what you need to know about contracting officer representatives. Some of them are lazy and they don't like to write. If I just give you a satisfactory, I don't have to write anything. If I rate you satisfactory across the board, I don't need to put any verbiage out there. What I've had to do in the past when I was managing a program on the government site and I had a lazy contracting officer, I actually had to make an appointment with the contracting officer's rep in a closed room and sit down. And I looked at it like this: if all she was going to give my people for their outstanding work was satisfactories, I had nothing to lose by confronting her. And I sat down and I said, ma'am, with all due respect, my people have exceeded all of your expectations. All of my deliverables have been on time or ahead of schedule. You have had no complaints with my team on quality, scheduling, management, cost, regulatory compliance. And for you just to give us satisfactories across the board, which doesn't tell my team that they've been as good as they are, with all due respect, it's very, very unfair. And I would like you to reconsider, give us the exceptionals where they're due, and give us a nice write-up. I've had to do that twice. I'll be honest with you. Once the contracting officer's rep looked at me and said, it is what it is. I don't have time to write that stuff. Have a nice day. And then the other one, the contracting officer's rep said, you know, Joe, you're right. I'm being a little bit lazy here. It's been a tough week. Let me take it back. Let me redo it and see if you like it. I mean, what do you got to lose? All you can do is go in there and ask, right? But there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with respectfully fighting for your team and your company's reputation, especially if you're just starting out. Every one of these CPARs for a new company, just doing government business, is absolutely critical. And if you don't have the ratings, you can't use that past performance. So, you know, in my humble opinion, if that means the CEO herself has to come in with me as her lead on site, sit down with the contracting officer and say, okay, obviously my team's not doing worth a damn if all we got was sats. So please tell me, where do we fall short in the categories?
Folks, there's a literal on the SBA website that says, don't make Joe mad. So that's what.
Oh, no, you don't ever want to make an Italian American mad, Don. You guys have seen the movies. They're not nice.
Well, don't pull out the gun now, Joe. Hey, let me ask you a question. So your company actually does CPARs for other companies? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, the CPARs is what the government gives. In other words, if it's a 5-year contract, the government will give you 5 CPARs, one for every year. What I do is I take the CPARs that go with the contract that the companies that are teaming are applying for past performance. Let's say we got 4 companies on our company team.
Okay.
And there's 3 past performances due. Every company will send me 2 or 3 along with their CPARs. My job is the guy that pulls it together and say, okay, out of everything that was submitted, what contract most is closest to the scope and the requirements in the solicitation, and who has the best ratings. And then it's just my judgment call. There might be one contract that's a little bit closer to what the government's looking for in the solicitation, but their report cards are mainly satisfactory and good. There might be another company that submits a past performance candidate, not quite as robust as the first one, but all their ratings are exceptional. So now I have to decide which one do I think is going to please the government the most.
Right.
Okay. So John, let me just pursue this 1 second.
Go
My
ahead.
understanding is that the CPARs are written by the government,
Yes,
but before I can get a CPAR, I have to have past performance, right? Yes?
your CPAR is your report card for your past performance.
But I'm going for a contract.
Yeah,
I need past performance in order to really qualify for that contract.
which means you have to have a contract within the time frame, 36 months, 60 months, that demonstrates that you have done similar work in scope and in magnitude, and that you have done it well. So when you say I have some work that qualifies, you got to have that report card that tells the government that you did well. So when a company gives me a contract they're working on, they also have to give me the report cards so that the government knows they did it well, because the government's got access to all the databases. They're going to find out whether you performed well. They're going to find out whether a task was canceled because of poor performance, whether it was canceled because of cost overrun. So in pulling the past performance together, all those questions have to be answered. And the best way to answer it is show me your report card on that contract. Because if there's anything negative, I'm going to see it there.
But Joe, that's what I want to drill in on. I'm a company, I've got past performance. How do I put together a winning, convincing past performance report to give to the government? I mean, how do I write that? How do I make it convincing? How do I win that contract over everybody else who's writing the same past performance?
That's a good question, and my answer to that is kind of simple. Compliance, compliance, compliance.
Okay.
All right, no fluff. The government can really quickly, sort out fluff.
Right.
Normally, the past performance, believe it or not, they don't give you a whole lot of room.
Mhm.
I've worked past performances on contracts where they wanted 4 examples of past performance, and they gave you 5 pages to do it.
Yep.
All right. So in writing past performance, it depends how much space they give you. But what I usually do is, where's the matrix? Hang on, Melissa, can you please call up number 3 and put this up here? That's a good question, because we can put call up 3 and I'll show you exactly how I do this.
Okay, appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, no problem.
Mhm.
My adrenaline starts flowing when I talk about this stuff.
That's
All right,
it.
this is what I do. Now, CATS, I only worked at it. CATS is an acronym, it's Department of Commerce, Commerce Acquisition for Transformational Technology Services.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
Huge, yeah, tell me about it. God bless the government and their acronyms. All right, this was a huge solicitation. I mean, huge. So what I did was, there were 4 task orders in the solicitation that each team that was competing had to reply to. So what I did was, I took everything that was required in the 4 task orders
Hmm.
in the CAT solicitation, and then I looked at past performance contract A, B, C, and D, and I filled in this matrix. So when all was said and done, and I forget what teammate this was, but it's proprietary, I couldn't say it anyhow.
Yep.
But when all was said and done, out of the 4 candidates, this is the contract that I chose for 2 reasons. Number 1, they had 2 CPARs with mostly exceptional
Okay.
ratings. And number 2, look at all the things the government is looking for in the new solicitation that one contract did. So what I'll do is, when I write the past performance response, I'll put this, I don't know what you call it, a call out box or something in the
Mhm.
narrative. So when the government's reading that past performance contract, okay, let's see, their subcontract did this contract. It's been going for 3 years. Oh my God, look at that. Look at all the bases. Look at all the stuff they're doing now that we need done. Boy, these guys are good. See what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So it's all how you package it, but I like the matrix because the matrix not only makes the viable candidate come through, but this is a perfect way to go back to all your teammates and say, hey, teammate B, we're not going to use your contract, and here's why. Here's the 2 matrices. I'm sure you can see that your contract is a very good candidate, but certainly not as good as company C's candidate. And we're all in this together, and everybody wants the best foot forward. So
Right.
it helps you with the government, and it helps you with any kind of hard feelings on the team. It is
So,
what it is.
not only is it important to get past performance, but it has to be acceptable past performance and stellar past performance. And then you have to actually document it appropriately so that it impresses the government.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And that's why when you go through the solicitation, you pull out things that need to be addressed in the past performance. For instance, in the solicitation, it might say, let's go back to the help desk thing.
Yeah.
We want you to establish a tier 1 and a tier 2 help desk to support NASA's 99,000 employees in the continental United States. Okay. Past performance noted. We have to demonstrate that we can do tier 1 and tier 2 help desk for a lot of people, not 100, not 500, not 1,000. I need somebody on my team who's done this for 50, 60, 70, 100,000 employees. So right up front, I can advise the prime contractor and say, look, I've looked at all your teammates, and partner, one of the biggest things they're calling for is a tier 1 and tier 2 help desk to support 90,000 employees. You got nobody on your team that even comes close to that.
Right.
Oh, really? Yeah, really. So you can either be partially compliant, you can bring on another teammate, but you can't have it both ways. And oftentimes the prime will go back, and it'll take a couple of days, but they'll find a teammate that's got good performance in an area that I picked up that they somehow overlooked when they were putting their team together. A lot of times they'll put their company of teams together without actually going through the past performance and what those requirements need. Oh, we need a company that did help desk. Good, you did help desk. You're on. We need a company that does space. Oh, you got experience with NASA. Come on. No, it's looking for specific things, and you got to nail that down from the beginning. So sometimes I recommend they bring on additional teammates, and of course, especially in the final hour with arrangements and you know what percentage, and
It gets tough.
it gets tough. It gets complicated. Yeah.
Mhm.
A couple of times as a consultant, my recommendation has been 15, 20 hours into doing the past performance. I'll say, look, if you want to continue to pay me to put this together, I will. But I'm telling you, you have not got a chance in hell of winning this thing because you're not near compliant. So what I'm telling you is cut me off. Don't do the solicitation. You're just wasting time and money. Now, if they come back and say, okay, Joe, that's very honest with you. We've had a meeting and you're right. We really can't comply. Thanks for your advice. Fine. If they come back to me and say, yeah, we understand what you're saying, but we want you to complete it. Fine. If I told you, don't pay me to do this because you won't win. And your answer is, hey, Joe, we'd like you to pay you to do this so we don't win. Okay, that's honest work. I'll do my best. I'll give you the best past performance rating for your mediocre contracts as I can.
Joe, I love you, guy. Got another question.
Yes, sir.
How does the government take the past performance of an organization? What does the government do with that when they look at it?
They do basically the same thing I did when I did the matrix.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to know the solicitation inside out because they wrote it. So they've got similar checklists. Okay. Does this past performance show software engineering experience? Does this company have a lot of experience with agile Scrum business processes? Has this company ever screened or scrubbed software code? They just go down the list. And if we were allowed to submit 3 contracts for past performance consideration, they're going to go through my write-up there, and they're going to want to see everything they're looking for in one of the 3. And it's simply a compliance. It's either we're compliant or we're non-compliant. There's no in between, you know? Right. Have you ever done tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 help desk support? If my past performance says we did tier 1 and tier 2, and there's nothing about tier 3, don't let the door hit you in the backside, folks. You lose.
Okay.
You know, Jay, I think you're right. I think part of what we're seeing here is just the emphasis on when you read the requirement. I mean, I would just do a detailed matrix for everyone that has their own processes. Make sure you're compliant, because previously being on the government side, if I've got quite a few of these to review, it becomes fairly easy to reduce my workload by illustrating certain responses do not comply, and therefore, boom, you're off to the side. And if you want to try to go down the route of protest or whatever else, but you really don't have a leg to stand on. No. But really focus on the compliance and the qualitative and quantitative requirements that award has when you review that, to make sure that you can fit that up front. You know, you almost need to read the solicitation for and the requirements and then form the team, not form the team, then go after it when you don't know the details of really the quantitative and qualitative factors that the government's looking for. That's when you get over a barrel a little bit.
Absolutely. There's a process I'm sure you're familiar called shredding and solicitation.
Mm-hmm.
Solicitation comes in.
Shredding.
What does that mean?
There are professionals that go through that entire solicitation and actually draw out all of the requirements of that contract, everything that you need as far as experience, compliance, labor categories, skill sets, you know, senior engineer, chief engineer, software developer, and it could be pages and pages and pages. Well, I like to do the same thing for past performance. I go in there and I shred it, and all I'm looking for is what are they looking for in past performance? And I put it on an Excel spreadsheet, and that's my guide when I evaluate what the teammates give me.
Gotcha.
Hey, one of the question, you had talked about cores before, contracting officer representatives. Sometimes when you're working on an engagement and they're interacting with them, they may ask you for deliverables that are outside of the scope of the contract, because they probably have a requirement of work that needs to get done. You're doing a great job and you're there. Hey, Joe, can you add this on? Can you do this as well? How do you handle those situations? Clearly, you want to keep the core happy.
Well, you want to keep the core happy, but you also want to stay legal.
Right.
Now, here's the way I look at it. The contracting officer's representative speaks for the contracting officer. So if he comes to me and says, Joe, I know this isn't in scope, but I need you to do this if your team can handle it.
Mhm. I
I go back and make a memorandum for record. When he told me we need this done, that's the US government putting the requirement on me. And I'll go back in my memo for record and say, I think this is out of scope. I brought it to the attention of the contracting officer's rep. He told me, I'm aware of that. We need you to do it and we need it by tomorrow. So I've got a memorandum for record that covers my backside. Yes, I told the Corps it was out of scope in my opinion. The Corps said do it. The Corps speaks for the government. And then I will turn that over to corporate. If they want to get lawyers involved, I mean, let's face it, most of the time, if you keep the Corps happy and there's no friction, it is what it is. You do the task, you deliver it, and the Corps owes you one, frankly, unofficially.
Mhm.
But my experience is you make that memo for record, you cover your butt and you cover the company's butt. You make sure that memo for record goes to your chief operating officer, to your legal representative. They may want to show it to the CEO. Always do that memo for record and always bring up to the Corps that you don't think it's in scope and wait for that statement. Yeah, it probably isn't, but we really need this done and you're the only one that can do it. Conversely, if there's something you want to do in support of a contract and you go, boy, you know, if I could do this, this would be awesome. I'll give you an example. I ran the program protection program at DISA for 5 years, protecting acquisition programs, and all the operations security plans in the agency needed revamping, and they needed revamping now. And I knew operations security had to be a part of program protection. I went to the Corps and said, we want to write all 60 or 70 operations security plans for all the entities globally. And the Corps came back and said, I haven't read anything that says operations security is a part of program protection. It's not mentioned in the contract. So no, I spent about 4 hours going through every Department of Defense instruction, regulation I could. I found one and only one-page Department of Defense memo that stated something to the effect, operations security planning is a critical part of program protection planning. I brought it to the Corps and I said, there you go. DOD recognizes operations security as a subset of program protection. Ergo, I ask again, we want to write the operations security plans. And he smiled at me and said, how long did it take you to find this thing? I said about 4 billable hours. He said, yeah, go ahead and do it. And we did write, well, it was about 70 plans, and the company got a great kudo for that. So, you know, you just kind of get in there and do it.
Right. So let me ask you this just kind of related question. You're the lead on the project. You're the PM. You work with the Corps. How do you develop a good relationship with the contract officer, the Corps, and the program manager? Because clearly your company may, while you're in there, you always hear the expression, hey, we had a contract at agriculture or energy or DOD or any agency, hey, and I was able to grow that contract. So how do you build those relationships that if you're doing a great job delivering on one contract, of course, you want the second contract at that agency as well, or you want
that's a phenomenal question. I'll tell you why, for 2 reasons. Do your homework on how involved the contracting officer is after award, as opposed to the contracting officer's rep. Normally, after the award, unless the contract needs an amendment or there's a problem with billing, the contracting officer is only there if the contracting officer rep or you need him. The contracting officer's rep handles most of it. So the first thing that I would do, let's say, all right, I get a contract award, I have to assign a program manager. First thing I'm going to do is do all the intelligence gathering I can on the contracting officer's rep. Is she or he fairly easy to get along with? How demanding are they? How hard to get along with are they? So that when I interview a candidate to be my program manager, I'm not going to throw her into a snake's pit. During the interview, I'm going to say, hey, you need to be good with people, because I'm telling you, the guy you're going to work for is a contracting officer's rep. He does not have a reputation for being respectful, for having respect for quality of life. He works his PMs to death, a lot of last minute demands. And to tell you the truth, unless you're the kind of person that's used to that and it can roll off, you probably don't want to take the job. Make sure you're preparing the person for what goes in. And here's the other thing. I've seen companies make project leads and program managers out of men and women who have more technical smarts than I will ever have. They got more in their pinky than I have. I'm an operator. But it's my humble experience, and no offense to any engineer or scientist out there, the best people person are not your senior engineers and your rocket scientists. They're great at technical stuff, but building relationships, conflict management, getting along with people in other companies ain't the best. So I'm telling you, if I have a choice between a man or a woman who has phenomenal people skills, not probably as sharp as they could be on the engineering or scientific side of the house, as opposed to a brainiac, that person with people skills
Right.
is
And camera skills, right, Joe?
But I'm not going there. The person with people skills, in my opinion,
Gotcha.
is going to win up, because you can always go get somebody smart to help you answer a question. You can't always get somebody with people skills who can calm a contracting officer's rep down when she's
Right.
upset about something, right?
Hey, Joe, we're going to jump in here, and Joe's going to stay around for the Q&A that's going to begin at 3 o'clock. The Q&A, you can ask Joe anything you want, except his personal secrets. He's not answering any of those things right now. What I want everyone to do, if you have not joined the Maryland Black Chamber of Commerce, at 3:30 when this session ends, I want you to go to our website, which is www.marylandbcc.org. Click on the join and then fill out the membership. The minimum membership is $150. And so we are looking to increase our membership to at least 500 by June. And so I'm sure you want us to get there. So that's what we need from you. Join us. The more people that we have that help us support and produce these programs, the more programs we can produce. And we want to know what you need to know. That's why we're bringing these specific actionable programs to you with wonderful expertise from folks like Joe, who actually do it on the ground every single day. John?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Hey, Don, I got a guy can help you with that membership. You just give me the names of the people that are on here that don't join. I know a guy. They'll be joined by Friday. Don't worry about it.
Hey, Joe, I'm from New York. Already know all those people.
They're going to join, Don. Believe me, they're going to join.
John, you want to close out with the Q&A information?
Yeah, I said one question here real quick. As a small business, we mentioned teaming earlier, Joe. How do you, as a small business, how do you team or joint venture with a large business and maintain control of that relationship, particularly in a situation where you're the prime contractor and they're subbing to you?
Yeah, I'm not a contract expert, but here's what I've observed with some JVs and some teaming.
Mhm.
When you're a small company, sometimes you don't have quite the legal staff, if at all, that the large company has.
Mhm.
And what I advise people is, if you don't have a lawyer, bring one on a consulting basis and have him read these JV and teaming agreements extremely close to, number one, make sure there's no hidden clause in there where you have a teammate that's trying to take advantage of you. And my experience has been most companies deal in good faith. And the reason why they do that is the first time you're caught screwing over your partners, you get that reputation. Nobody wants to work with you. But it's still good to have somebody who's an expert review the writing to make sure, number one, you're not being taken advantage of. And number two, make sure that legal person, that contract, if you can put a clause in that teaming agreement that gives you an easy escape if something goes downhill. Something in there where if this happens, we can pull out, everything's null and void. Give yourself an escape clause if at all possible.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. Perfect. Thank you.
A legal contract is mandatory in my mind in any situation. Thank
For
you,
sure.
Joe.
No
We're
problem.
We're gonna.
Handshakes
your
are great,
brain.
but you got to put it in writing.
Yep,
Yeah, what did
Right.
Reagan used to say, trust but verify?
yep.
Yeah.
John, you want to close out and tell them how the Q&A is gonna run?
Yes, everyone. So this is how the Q&A will go. If you have a question, I know there's several in the chat. We're just going to ask you to ask those now. Under the reactions tab at the bottom, if you can hit raise your hand, Don and I will look to recognize those folks. And so then you can just ask your question. We'll have back and forth. And you just may have a comment about what you heard. Maybe you have had similar experiences or maybe something a little bit different that we could all benefit from because we're all here to learn. And so please share those as well. I know there's a couple questions that were in the chat earlier. If you could just raise your hand and we can go from there.
Well, why don't I ask a couple of questions that were in the chat?
Okay, go right ahead. Okay.
Okay. The first one I saw was, is it wiser for small contractors to apply for GSA type contracts and get some experience before competing for major contracts?
Yeah, I don't think that would hurt at all. I
Okay,
mean, you got a whole bunch of work with pre-established rates on the GSA schedule. If you can go and get some GSA schedule, if it's government work and you do it well, it's gonna qualify for past performance,
great.
Again, you want to try and find something that's over $250,000 in value, so you get that CPARS, that mandatory CPARS. But yeah, I don't think it would hurt any government work you can get as a new company. Everything you get is going to be a learning curve and a learning experience.
So
And-
Joe, touch on that 250 that you just said. What significance does 250,000 have?
By the federal acquisition regulation, and there are some exceptions,
Uh-huh.
for most contracts, if the contract value is $250,000 or more,
Mhm.
the government must give you an annual CPARS report card.
Okay, thank you. Thank
And
you.
I will tell you, folks, I have had times when I was due a CPAR and it's 2, 3, 4, 5 months overdue, where I had to go back to the Corps and say, hey, where's my report card? I got a report card. Oh, yeah, I'll get to it. Okay, I appreciate it.
Okay. Here's
Right,
another
and-
question. What is the best way to establish a relationship with a GSA contracting officer?
Wow. I would say the same as establishing a relationship with any other contracting officer. You want to be honest. You want to be forthright. You want to ask as many questions as you feel you need to ask. You want to listen to what that contracting officer is saying. And I guess the best advice is, I found this in business. I'm trying to say this so it's a more polite. There's a fine line between being persistent and being a pain in the backside. And no, really. And that fine line differs between different contracting officers. Some contracting officers don't mind 1 or 2 phone calls a week. Some will not like a phone call every day. Some, they don't want to hear from you unless it's, a dire emergency. So you got to find that fine line with every contracting officer you deal with. What is he or she comfortable with? What areas they won't go there, they don't want you to ask, and what areas are they pretty amenable, to working with you? And you just, frankly, what I've done is I just kind of feel my way around. Sometimes in my initial conversation with a contracting officer, I'll say, hey, you know what? I'm new at this. I know there's certain stuff as the government you can't share with me. If I ask a question or I lead a discussion in an area where you can't talk, it's not intentional, just tell me, because I got to learn. Just say, Joe, I'm not at liberty to discuss that with you, or really, Joe, that wasn't a proper question to ask, and then just tell me why. Just be honest.
Okay.
Be honest, be yourself, and do your best not to cross the lines. Oh, one more point, John and Don, if I may.
Please.
Go ahead. Yes.
When you read a government contract, be careful with the words should and shall, okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Should means we'd like you to do it. Shall means we want you to do it. And sometimes in the wording of the solicitation, and sometimes it's a government mistake, there'll be 5 subparagraphs. The first 4 say,
Whoever that is, please.
what's
Thank
that?
you. No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
There might be 5 bullets, and the first 4 say contractor shall do this, contractor shall do this, contractor shall do this. And the last bullet, contractor should do this. My question is, does he mean should or shall? And was it a mistake? Because shall, you have to be compliant. Should, nice to be compliant, but you don't have to. And have we got time for a quick anecdote?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Here's how I learned the difference between shall and should. I
Okay.
was a company commander in a meeting with a very grouchy colonel that we all work for. And he says at the meeting, I walked through the barracks. All the walls are brown in the hallways. I hate brown. You guys should bring your guys in this weekend, get rid of that brown and paint them green or blue. Threw us all out after the meeting. Out of 5 companies, I was the only one who didn't make my guys work the weekend painting the barracks. Everybody else was painting. Monday morning, we get in there and he looks at me and says, what's your problem, Ruffini? I said, what do you mean, sir? He said, you're the only company that didn't paint the barracks. I said, yes, sir, I am. He said, you were ordered to. I said, no, sir, with all disrespect, you had a suggestion. You said, you guys should repaint the barracks. Had you had, sir, said you shall, that's a lawful order. I said, with all due respect, sir, I called the JAG right after that meeting. And he said, was it should or shall? And I said to the lawyer, he said, should. The lawyer said, no, not a lawful order. So with all due respect, sir, that was your fault, not mine. Now,
That's when they send Joe to the Marines, folks.
no, that's when he said, that's when he said, you now in my office. And he took a verbal chunk out of my backside that has never grown back. But boy, was it worth it to be able to say that.
So I hope the weekend pass was worth it.
Oh yeah, it was not a good week after that, really.
Folks, you see how military experience translates to government contract automatically. I've got another Q&A, Joe. How would a prime company be willing to provide a smaller company that wants to work with them as a subcontractor on a contract the requested evaluation if requested? How would a prime provide a smaller company with the requested information for, I guess, for past performance? If this is your question and I'm not saying it correctly, please let me know.
Why don't you just ask for clarification? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that I understand the question, Don.
Okay, I'm asking the asker, that's Ty Nichols, if you're still around. Just come, unmute yourself. Can he do that, Melissa? Or he has to put in the box. Yeah, Ty, what's your question, buddy?
Oh yeah, my question is simply, I'm just completely brand new to government contracting, and
Sure.
a lot of the people that I've seen get involved with government contracting are doing like trucking or providing a physical product, things of that nature. And I'm a speaker, trainer, facilitator. I'm like, just where do I begin? Do I even fit in with government contracting as a whole?
So are you marketing, have you got a company that you're building or are you marketing yourself?
Yeah, I do have a company. I'm the only employee of said company, but I am building my speaking, training, and coaching company. Yes.
Okay, well, what I might suggest is there are training contracts out there. You know, pick the department, Commerce, Transportation, Department of Defense. If your skills are in presentation and are in training or training development and you're comfortable with that, then there's a couple of things you can do. You can look. Do you intend to become an 8A, or are you just gonna wing it yourself?
I'm not sure what an 8A is.
Okay, it's a stack of paperwork about this high. An 8A, if your company becomes an 8A during its growth process, until it hits a certain revenue generation, the government can award an 8A a contract with no competition. It's a big advantage just to get that small business up and running, help it to grow. But in your instance, what I would do is I would go look for companies that are bidding on training contracts. And a lot of these companies have contracts where trainers have to get on a plane and go to different locations to present a week or 2 weeks at a time. And in your case, what I would do is I would market my one-man company as somebody that can be the lead for this training effort, or somebody that can be the primary presenter. Find a company that likes your resume, likes what you're doing, is willing to give a lift up to somebody like you and get that first contract and then go do it well.
And Ty, I can tell you from real life experience, my government contracting company was in training. We didn't have any experience. We found a prime that didn't have the expertise that we had. They had contracts with George Washington University. They didn't have the expertise that we had. That was our first opportunity to get government contracting as a sub. We subbed with them. We never became a prime, but we subbed with them, and they expanded our ability to sub with other companies. And so that's where you should be looking. Determine what your NAICS codes are, what your expertise is, find out what larger companies are in your area, and then you actually have to do what Joe said. You've got to be that person who goes out and makes them love you, and you've got to take your past performance along with you so that they know what you're doing is relevant and that they can bring you on as a subcontractor and increase their chances of winning that project, okay?
That's good, all good points. That, and also remember that most of the time when a solicitation goes out to a large company, there's a requirement to bring on a small company. A percentage of the business has to go to a teammate that's, let's say, an 8A or a small company. So normally, if you find the company at the right time, you're doing them a favor. They got to bring on a small, maybe they don't have one. But like Don said, it's very, very labor intensive, a lot of data mining, a lot of website work to try and find somebody that you might fit in with. And don't be discouraged. You know, like Don, when I first started out on this, there were many, many weeks of just, you know, ripping my hair out saying, I don't know if I'm ever going to make this work.
Exactly.
You know, when you're marketing yourself, you can't get discouraged. I mean, you'll have high points, you'll have low points. That's why people offer fine wine and beer. But you know, you just get in there and just don't give up. You'll find somebody. The other thing is networking, and this is even virtual networking like LinkedIn. Get on in there. Say, look, here I am. I started a new company. Here's my strengths. I'm looking to team with somebody who's got a good contract and needs a small.
Yeah.
I mean, you do that on LinkedIn, you're reaching out to hundreds of thousands of men and women.
Right. And
We're
then
going to be talking about marketing and visibility in our May 9th session. And so, Ty, I suggest everybody come there. But the number one thing is, if you don't brag about yourself, no one else is going to do it. What we're going to teach you on May 9th is how to brag about yourself, how to be that pest that Joe told you that you had to be, how to do all that succinctly. So definitely show up. But one thing I do want to say, Joe mentioned 8A. 8A is a specific minority certification that gives us some advantages, but don't go into 8A too soon. Get your past performance, get your experience. You don't, or we don't recommend that you get that certification before your company is up, going, and successful. But we can talk about that at offline or another time. Okay.
Definitely. One thing I like to add to that is be a persistent pest. That's kind of
love that word.
Well, that was one of the person that told me that. I said that is a great compliment.
Polite, persistent.
But, people realize they're busy and do that. One other quick question I wanted to add, Joe, and just share with everybody is, you mentioned contracts of 250 and up. The Federal Acquisition Register, the FAR, something called the SAT, the Simplified Acquisition Threshold, which is for contracts under 250,000. I don't know if you want to be able to speak to that. It's a smaller contract, but again, as a small business, or if you're just getting started, maybe in Ty's example, you can get smaller awards like that to get your sea legs under you in federal government contract.
That's a good point, John. I'll be honest with you. The contracts below 250, not my area of expertise. I wouldn't feel comfortable giving any advice on that.
Sure. Okay. But what I would say is, as you're speaking with your contract officer or the program official, be they a small business or core, ask them about their process for awarding SAT, which is Simplified Acquisition Threshold, which are contracts which are a little bit more than a purchase order that are under $250,000.
Yeah. Anthony Jefferson, would you unmute yourself? I see your question, but I'm not sure that we're able to make sure that we read it correctly. Would you unmute yourself and talk with us, buddy? Anthony? Is that a no? I guess that is. Okay.
Well, yeah, he's still logged in. Maybe step away for a minute.
Yeah, okay. He'll be back.
He'll be back.
Okay. John, have you seen any other questions that?
Yeah, he says he's gonna log in under another machine. You know, one other thing I was just gonna make a comment on earlier as he's logging back in is about building. You read a question earlier in the Q&A about building relationship with a contract officer, et cetera. What's really important is one way to do that is to respond to sources sought in RFIs. So sources sought is part of the acquisition process where the government sends out the sources sought. They're trying to understand where industry is, large and small business, as it relates to that requirement. And oftentimes it's not formally shaped yet. They really want good input about that requirement. And so if you can respond to that thoughtfully, number one, they will know who you are. And a lot of times they can incorporate your ideas into that proposal when it comes out. They're just throwing out the general proposal and the thought. You may have particular technical thoughts about how it's presented. You may have a best practice the government should follow, et cetera, that could add value. And so you can help shape that award. And that's one way for you to be recognized, because the contract officer and the Corps are going to actually read through all those. And sometimes it takes a while because they can get dozens or hundreds of them. But if you're one that's really thoughtful, then that's one way to build a relationship, because they'll recognize your name and your company when you do it.
If I could dovetail on that, John,
Sure.
building relationships, there's things you can do for your Corps that don't violate any government regulations, where you can, for instance, I overheard my Corps talking to his director about the fact that somebody was bringing a package to the office the next day. They were going to drop it off. They needed to walk it in the office at 5 o'clock. And could the Corps come in and open up the office early? And the Corps was saying, look, I said, hey, gentlemen, I said, I don't have a problem coming in at 5 tomorrow and open up and get the package. I said, whether I work 6 to 3 or 5 to 2, I'm very happy to come in early. And they went, hey, Joe, that would be great, because we can't find anybody that can come in that early tomorrow. So I came in at 5 a.m. The package got delivered. Everybody was happy. No sweat off my back. I just had adjusted my hours, but I did the Corps a big favor. And anytime I could do something like that, I was very happy to do that, because I wanted to show that even though I was a contractor, I'm a team player. You got something that the whole team needs to weigh in on, I'm there, man. Don't worry about it.
Diane, I saw that you had a question. Did we answer it for you already, or do you want to talk to us?
You answered the question, because I'm new to contracting. I'm new to this space. I do have my first certification as an economically disadvantaged small woman-owned business, but I know I would have to sub with someone. So This is great information
Thank
that
you.
I'm receiving here today. So I'm looking for partnership is what I'm looking for right now.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Keep in touch with us. We'll make sure we help you out as much as we possibly can.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Diane, if I can make a recommendation to you, ma'am,
Yes, sir.
I would get on the phone or email as many companies that do prime contracting and just introduce yourself. Say, here's my name. I just established, I think you said a woman-owned,
Yes,
woman-owned disadvantaged business.
correct.
A lot of times contracts call for a hub zone company
Yep.
or a woman-owned business. Get out there and just have what I call a couple of slides on who you are, who your company is, what you're trying to do, what your strengths are, and push that out over LinkedIn, social media platforms. Send that to every company. If you can send an email and say, yo, I'd like to follow up with a phone call and introduce myself, and they come back and give you a phone number, boom. Just start getting your name out there.
Okay.
You know what? It's kind of like crappie fishing. You throw 100 fishing lines in the lake, you're bound to get more bites than if you just throw in 2, right?
Sounds good.
All right,
Excellent.
Hey,
Yep.
hey, Joe, and then just think about when it's hot and you're doing all that, throwing the line out there. Think about how good that fried catfish is going to taste that evening. You only need one.
All I need is one. That's exactly.
You need one to
what
get started. And so, so for instance, the event that Ken mentioned earlier on June 15th, the wine and beer tasting, just come out to meet people.
Okay.
Yeah. Just introduce yourself, come out to meet people. There'll be other contractors. I mean, so there's doing everything Joe said is great too. And there's other social events, social networking events like that, where people are going to be out in the business communities coming out and just meet people. Just introduce yourself and meet people.
I've
We
been,
wouldn't
I've been
put a meeting
doing
there.
that. I've definitely been involved in a lot of
That's great.
networking events and meeting people in person. I'm working with a consultant presently, so I'm gaining some strides. It's just a slow process.
But business is slow, but you want to be sure that you do it correctly. And for everyone, you need to be at the virtual on May the 9th, which is the marketing. You need to learn how to do your elevator speech, how to package yourself, what to say and how to say it quickly. The government contractors don't want to sit around for half an hour for you to explain what you think you've been doing. So sign up for May 9th, be here. Sign up for March 25th. That's where we're going to talk about the accounting systems, which are the most important thing in the world because they help you to get the past performance documented. All right. So we need to be here. Joe, can folks contact you? You said you're more than willing to have them contact you for anything.
Absolutely. Do they have my email and or phone number? Or
John, are we going to be sharing the slides?
Yeah, if we want, yeah, so we can drop that into the chat. Yes.
Yeah. So we'll share the slides and your information, Joe, and we'll share John's information and my information for everyone who wants to be involved.
Yeah, if I can be of assistance, I'm very happy to. If you ask me something where I don't have any expertise or I'm not confident, I'll be honest with you. I'll just tell you, you got the wrong guy.
Kelsey, you came off mute. Do you want to ask a question? No? Is there anyone else that has a question that they want to come off mute and talk with us about?
Yes.
Go ahead,
Question. I'm new to the contracting.
What's your name, my friend?
Kurt Graham. Kurt.
Hey, Kurt, how you doing?
Good, thank you. I am in the process of applying for a source of salt. And I have we do contracting and transportation. I'm partnered with some builders, construction, from drywall, painting, doors, interior, anything you need, framing, the whole 9 yards. I've also collaborated with or talked to several other contractors doing air conditioning and so forth. So I guess more so I'm working at being a counselor, consultant, excuse me, with these gentlemen. But one of the projects, how do you really come to determine the rate or the inclusive fees? And some of the work I will be working hands-on in. The rest of it is that the contracts that I am filling out, applying for.
So Kurt, let me tell you that you need to sign up for our next session, April 25th, where we're going to be going into rates, fringes, overheads, and all those other vital things that you need to know in depth. Okay. So sign up for that. Please show up. We're going to give you information that's going to be extremely valuable. But let me say this right now. Everyone should go online and do your research on the things that you have that you need to know about. Whether it's past performance, there's a load of information online that you can get conversant with. And there's information about fringe benefits, overhead rates, pools. Believe me, the government has more acronyms and more classifications than we'll ever be able to discuss here. So if you do your research up front and come with specific questions, it'll make it easier for us to drill down on those questions. A broad topic makes it very hard for us to answer your questions, and that's what we're trying to avoid. We want to make sure that what we tell you is specific, and when you hang up the phone, you can start using it right there. So Kurt, if you would look on the web for fringe information, I'll put my email address in there. We can talk about it. But April 25th, that's going to be the topic. Okay, buddy?
Got it.
And one other thing I'd like to add there too, John, is a beautiful thing called GSA. And when you go into GSA, just so everyone knows, GSA is a series of contract vehicles that the government has already negotiated the price and the scope of work with. So you can find a contract vehicle and find actually your competitors that do your work. And you can see their whole pricing schedule is laid out for the public. So you can understand if you're in trucking or if you're delivering IT services or engineering, if you're doing training, if you're doing coaching, et cetera. All those your competitors are offering those services and have already negotiated a rate and scope with GSA. And so you can go to GSA and you can see literally their T&C sheet. It's a PDF. You can download it for your industry and find out how your competitors are pricing their products and service. Some are by volume versus certain thresholds, et cetera. So you can really find all that. So as you're looking to come into the government, you may think about how do I price my service? Go out on the GSA schedule, find a company that's providing it already, and you can literally download and look at what their prices are that the government has approved. So that gives you a great baseline about can you do, is this a profitable business? First question is, can you make money doing this? You want to do it so you can go in the GSA understanding what is your cost structure? How, and again, we can talk about this in some of the subsequent sessions. How much does it cost for you to deliver your product or service? You have that. Now go on GSA and figure out how much is what the government's paying for it. And so those are just ways around, but I would really use GSA as a resource. So it gives you some range of as you're negotiating. Doesn't mean that that particular contract officer is going to pay that price for it. But you know, where somewhere in the government is paying for a similar product or service that you offer.
GSA, you beat me to it. That's a great
I'm
point.
sorry.
And the other thing is, anybody that's been in business as long as the three of us that looks you in the eye and say, I have always priced it right on the money, is a bold-faced liar. I still either come in too low or too high, and I beat myself up. You know, it's like I'll be talking to somebody and they'll say, well, what's your hourly rate as a consultant?
And I'm
And
like,
I'll give them what I think is a fair, but a pretty high rate. And they immediately come back and say, oh, that's no problem. I did it again. If they
you
come back
have, you have money on the table.
you know, I should have gone, $100 an hour. I don't know. Just,
Yep.
you're gonna make mistakes. We all make it, but that GSA is a good way to find the rates.
Yeah.
Hey,
Do
guys.
research so that you know what you're looking for, and then let's refine it, okay? And remember, John Hale was Osdable for the Department of Energy. The very few times do you get to talk with a person who was the man in the government contracting, who's now on the commercial side, Cornerstone Group, making sure that he shares that information with all businesses.
Hey,
Joe
guys.
currently packaging past performance for companies and has been doing it successfully. So again, and I'm a CFO for Cornerstone and other government contracting companies, and I've been in government contracting. So right here, you've got enough wealth of information, and we're open. We want you to contact us because we want to share that with you so that we can make sure that you become a multimillionaire. And then can I say we get our 10%? No, I can't say that. Okay, forget it.
Hey, guys, I want to interject real quick. There's a really interesting question in the chat that I want
Sure.
to guys get to before it's too late.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
First one, Luke wrote, can I use past performance from a specific area I've led on a government contract, but I was an employee of a large contract company versus a business?
Okay, and we actually answered that during the experience and past performance, but Joe, would you hit that again?
Yeah, if you had the past performance, but it was with another company, that's not gonna work. If I understand the question. So
Yes.
you did it and you did it well with a past company and you're bringing that experience to the current company that's competing. But if the company you're with doesn't have those bona fides, then it's past experience, not past performance.
And I'd like to ask a quick caveat to that, and then Joe, I'd love it down there. Everyone get your thoughts around that. Yes, you cannot do that, but if you join the contract team as an SME, meaning that you're going to be one of the key personnel on the contract delivering that service as part of that contract, you can't get it for your own individual company as a prime, but you can get perhaps, something you can potentially use as past performance by being key personnel, maybe by an SME subject matter expert on other contracts. Then maybe that's a way that you can, down the road, you can go to someone, look what I've done as part of these contracts. I've been key personnel at these various contracts and delivered X, Y, and Z.
And there's several people who asked this question in the chat. Do you have any websites that you would recommend as a good resource for government contractors?
Oh, gee, there's I could probably, although John, you may have your finger more on the the GSA website. What's the federal site that shows all the solicitations? I just drew a blank. The federal site that shows all the government solicitations.
USA Spending? Or you're talking about sam.gov?
Sam.gov. Yep. I could go into my database and probably come up with 3 or 4 or 5 or.
Contact us and we will make sure that we get that information to you.
And real quick, guys, want to thank Michelle for joining while she was on in your session, and thank Tia for committing to join after your session. So good work. Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you both. Welcome.
And someone asked us to give the place for our Juneteenth event again. It's going to be on June 15th at Brookside Gardens in Silver Spring, Maryland.
Yeah, there's, we will get you the websites. One is, from the Small Business Administration, SBA.gov. There's a PTAC, Procurement Technical Assistance Centers. They're around the country. Department of Defense sponsor those. There's one in George Washington, for instance, I think College Park, Maryland. So they're usually in association with universities. They're around the country as well, between USA Spending and SAM.gov. So we will get a series of those and send those out there. I could not grab those quickly.
But let me say, there's no substitute for doing your own research, going on past performance, fringe, cost pools. You need to do that because you need to be able to articulate the area that you need. That's how I learned government contracting, by researching and then doing it. And really, it's a large subject. And a lot of the websites that we can send you to give you generic information, but they don't give you specific information. Researching online will help you narrow down what you're trying to do. Okay, John, you want to close out, buddy?
I have one last comment for you guys.
Yes, please.
Yeah, John, Don, and Joe. There are a lot of comments in the chat on how very informative this session was and how knowledgeable you guys are all. And they're very grateful and thankful for the information you're able to provide.
Okay, thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing you at each one of the 6 sessions. John, the last session is going to be live, and that's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, the last one will be June 20th. We'll let you know the time and the location. It's June 20th time. We'll get that location to you. We're going to try to make it a place where we understand how busy people are. We would love to get a place. We did it in Montgomery College before because it was free parking. I love free parking in the DMV. It's hard to get to. I love free parking. We can just get to places. So we will try to pick a place like that. But thank you for joining. Look forward to seeing you here the next session.
You'll get to meet Joe in person and shake his hand. So I mean, that alone is the reason to come to our live session. Joe, thank you, buddy.
I wouldn't put that down as the reason to come to a live session.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Ken.
Hey, my pleasure. It was a privilege. Thank you very much for letting me be part of this.
See you guys on the 25th. Okay, everyone.
Look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
for the
Melissa, as well.
comments, too.